You're tuned in to the Vintage House Show, home to the original stories of the history of house music as told by the legends, pioneers, and icons. Hosted by Kevin Mega McFall, Lori Branch, and Lauren Lowry.
That's a lot. Okay, so I'm going to start the show like I would normally start the show,
Okay.
And then introduce you.
Okay.
Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage House Show on WNUR, WNUR.org. You can also catch us on our podcast, VintageHouseShow.us, VintageHouseShow.com, and check us out on YouTube, VintageHouseShow.org. You know, we celebrate and preserve we celebrate and preserve the history of house music. And today we have someone who was at the beginnings of the house genre, a Chicagoan who's been around all of the club scene, all of the underground club scene, and we're really getting sort of a viewpoint from the people who enjoyed the music the most, which is something we haven't done a lot of here at the Vintage House Show. So I'm very proud to introduce my friend, Maurice Adams. Hi, Maurice.
Hey.
Thank you so much for being on the show. And I'll tell you quickly, I was talking to your sister about something. I don't remember, something about house music, of course. And she says, "Oh, I know Maurice went to that club." I was like, I went to all the clubs. I got to
all of them. Yes.
I was like, why haven't I talked to Maurice about this subject? And I don't know why, it just didn't cross my mind until just now. So I'm so happy that you are able to take the time to talk to me. I'm not going to take up too much of your time tonight, but Maurice, give me a little bit about your background. We always start with people's earliest music memories, where they grew up. Communities are very important when we talk about preserving Chicago history, and where they came from, how they were influenced. So talk to me a little bit about you growing up in Chicago, where you grew up, grammar school, high school, things like that, and years that you were at these places.
Well, I'm from Chicago. I grew up on the west side of Chicago. Grammar school, I started out at an elementary school called Fairy Day, which was where my mother worked at. That didn't work out well because I think every 10 minutes I was in my mother walking out of the classroom going to my mother's office. Transferred to Beitler. I was at Beitler until I think fourth grade.
Where's Beitler?
Beitler's on the west side. It's on Kedzie and Walnut, directly across the street from the church I grew up in.
Oh.
At that era, my parents wanted us elevated in education, might you say, and they thought going to a private Catholic school was a better fit for us. And at that time, I was somewhat smart. Andre was somewhat, my brother was motivated. We wind up being transferred to St. Mel Elementary School on Washington and Costner on the west side is also.
Okay.
Went there through eighth grade. I worked hard in school. I was a valedictorian of my eighth grade class.
Wow.
4-year scholarship to go to Providence St. Mel, had been accepted to Lane Tech. I chose a different route. At that time in my life, I was starting to venture out in my private sector of my lifestyle.
Okay.
Gay was not acceptable. I was 13 years old, 14 years old, and being gay at that time was not even discussed. So with me slipping out and about to various places, I decided I wanted to go to Westinghouse High School, which is around the corner from where I grew up at. Got to Westinghouse, everything was chipper. I started doing well my first couple of years, and then I started meeting classmates who were the same gender as I was, getting more acquainted with that. I was invited out. I can almost remember, probably at 16, invited to go out with a friend of mine named Arthur. Went to the clubs. I lied to where I was going. And that started a whole new era of my life. Started slipping out, telling lies on the weekends so that I could go to these places. Clubhouse, Lorraine's, oh my God, there's a place downtown. I forgot the name of the one downtown. On Van Buren and State Street. Oh my God, I can't remember the name of that place, but that was a hot spot where we hung out at. Went on through high school. I started getting affectionate for a teacher in high school. We became acquainted. I started being invited out, and then he and I would start going to these clubs also. So that's how I got to the power plant, the warehouse, the garage places. The garage was a very private club at that time. Did I mention Lorraine's with him? Just the Waterworks, that's the club on Clark and Oak that I was trying to think of. The Waterworks. Okay. Started going to these places. My whole life ethic started changing. I started not being as motivated in my studies, but wanting to be in the streets and with this older gentleman. Started dating one of the guy in high school, which was a teacher of mine. That started a whole new opening of doors for me. Older guy, me, and that's one of the reasons I think I grew up quicker than what my age was, because I started being around older people. Always being with an older crowd, we were going to the clubs, and Friday and Saturday night, you were in the clubs in that era. You were going to Frankie Knuckles, the warehouse. We were going to all the clubs on Fridays and Saturdays. It got so bad, I started slipping out of my house at 16, 17. I would wait till my parents went to sleep. At that time, we had carpet in the house, so you could tiptoe out of the house and get through the front door without waking up my parents.
Right.
That went on for a while. Then my mom and dad got winds of it, and my dad started. One night I came in from the warehouse about 4 o'clock in the morning. My dad was sitting in the living room waiting for me. That started something. At that time, my parents kept saying that was not my mindset. Somebody else was leading me and guiding me to do the things that I was doing. They had been watching me. My parents were educators. Educators and parents mixed together, they don't miss anything. But thinking I was getting away and fooling them. Being in it was like a drug to want to go out on. When Friday came, to go to the warehouse was just a part of life. It was something I had to do, and I would go through any means necessary to get to the clubs on Friday nights. Saturday nights. Was raised in a religious household, so on Sunday mornings you had to get up and go to Sunday school and then church. When I started climbing out of the window, I think at 17, to go out, I was a junior in high school. It got so bad that I was coming home get home just in time before church started, and my parents would know I had been out doing what I do all night, and I was forced to go to church, which also made me a different person. And I can't say a better person, but it kept me grounded in my aspect. What I appreciate now that I've become a person of a certain age and I've matured and I've grown from my experiences. Also going to the clubs, the big thing was drugs. One of the big things was sex and drugs. You knew if you went to the clubs, you were going to most likely leave with someone, go into a room with someone, and you were going to smoke weed, you were going to do acid, you were going to snort cocaine. All of that went on with the house scene at that time, which was very unfortunately influential on my mindset at that time because I became, I'll be honest, weak-minded. I thought I had to do those things to be a part of that scene at that time. And plus me liking older gentlemen, I wanted to feel mature. So doing the drugs made me feel mature. Unfortunately, it took off into the wrong directions. I am a product of living a life of addiction. I have succumbed that. That is no longer the person I am, but I'm grateful for going through the changes with the older gentlemen, with the house parties, with the underground, with all of that, because it's made me the person I am today with going through all that. And I'm grateful.
Well, that's quite a story. So we're gonna go back a little bit. I want to
Yes.
talk about, first of all, it may seem sort of odd given what you just said, but I'm going to go back to your first memories of music. So we're going to talk a little bit about the music that you were sort of introduced to in your family with other young people, etc. And then what you remember about when you were in high school, even before that. I think before you said you were going out with you met some people in high school and you started going to clubs. What was the difference between the music you heard at home and the music you heard at the clubs as a teenager?
The music I heard at home at that time was the blues,
Mm,
soul, which is James Brown or Roberta Flack. Grew up with Aretha Franklin, Gladys Knight, and the house that I grew up. That was the music that I heard at home. That was the music I heard when we visited family and friends with
mm-hmm.
them. But house music had I want to say this right, a beat of relief. House music gave me freedom. House music allowed my body to do what I chose to do. It was no correct way to dance to house music. You just moved with the spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a place for me it was a different zone. Being at home and listening to music and following the direction of your parents and living life politically correct at that time, listening to house music was definitely, it was an escape. And it still is. I listen to, right now, not going and getting ahead of myself, I listen to house music 24/7 in my car.
Right.
I have my cars are programmed to this house music that we have here in Las Vegas. And that's what I listen to on my way to work, coming home. That's what I listen to. So house music gave me, it was a comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
And being out of that comfort zone gave me challenges, if that makes sense. If I was out of the comfort zone of listening to house music and being in my parents' house, wanting to listen to house music, it wasn't accepted. I couldn't go in my room as a kid and turn on house music and bangity 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 bang with Jays and Eva. That was just not where it was. So that part of life always was a secret.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the house music arena gave me the openness to be gay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
It's accepted. I was not looked upon as being any different than the next person next to me. It was a community. And that's something that the house music has established, been a part of establishing a comfort zone for the gay community.
Right. That is really, I think that's so important to know from the insider point of view. It's a community for you.
Yes.
And I think everyone else, one of the highlights for me is that your community embraced every community, because at some point some people just, they knew it was a release. They knew they felt freedom there. They were just dancing. They just enjoyed the music, gay, straight, black, white, whatever it was. But, we do know that, some of these places were were open because they weren't, white people weren't accepting, the white gay community weren't accepting them in certain places. So, you had to, create your own. So you did, and then you let everybody else come in too. So I thought that's kind of interesting. Okay, I'm gonna go back a little bit more. What is the first club you remember going to? Where was it and who were you with? Give me the names of the people you were with.
The Warehouse,
the
206 South Jefferson.
So that was the first place that was the first club you went to.
And
what years was that?
If I went 1978, I was 13.
Okay.
13 or 14, 1978, 79, the Warehouse. And I apologize for getting up moving around. I did not charge my phone. I meant to get on the iPad. So I'm going to have to walk to a phone charger. So I apologize. I am so sorry.
That's okay. I'll let you
Just
get
give
set up.
just give me a moment. I
Okay.
apologize. I thought I was ready for you to be on point.
It always is something, I'm gonna tell you, because you're supposed to get you weren't supposed to be on the phone anyway, probably supposed to be on the
On the iPad.
okay, you let me know you're ready again. I'll just splice this
I'm,
out.
re- I'm ready.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the first club you remember going to, the first club you remember going to is probably 1978, 1979,
Yes.
the Warehouse.
Yes.
Who took you to the Warehouse? Was it Arnold or was it the
Arthur.
teacher?
Arthur.
Arthur,
Arthur was the
Arthur.
first person I went with. And I think you know my friend Arthur.
And does Arthur still live in Chicago?
Yes. Still on the west side.
Still good friends?
Yes. We talked 2 days ago.
That's nice. That's lovely. I love the Chicago.
Yes.
We keep in
Yes.
touch. Did he also he went to Westinghouse, right?
Yeah, he went to Westinghouse, and we both went on. He went to Ray Vogue. I went to Eastern. He went to Ray Vogue, I think, a year before I got there. When I got to Ray Vogue, he was graduating at that time. So yeah, we stayed connected.
That is awesome. I'm trying to get this some background noise. Hold on 1 second. Sorry about that. You probably see
Okay.
all kinds of noise in the background. But okay, so the Warehouse, you and Arthur go into the Warehouse 1978, 1979. What is, so you probably he already knew about the club, was like, yo, we need to go. Or
Yes,
mhm.
that's
And
how it happened.
talk to me about what you remember. Like if we were to recreate the environment,
Oh
when
my
you go
God.
in, tell me about how it looked, felt. We went upstairs, down some stairs. What was happening?
I can probably tell you this verbatim. 206 South Jefferson. When you get up, you take the train. We take the Lake Street train, get off at Des Plaines. We walk. When you got to that corner, it was a line. The warehouse did not open until midnight.
Mm-hmm.
People were in the line to get into the warehouse. As you walked into the warehouse, you could smell the weed in the air. It was just an exuberance of energy. You go to the front, and I want to say at that time it may have been $5 to get it, and that was a lot of money. If
Yeah.
you had $5 in 1976 to go to the club, 77, you pay your $5. They had a security guard there. You walked into this open area, which was like a bar. They did not serve drinks. They did not sell. When I first started going there, they served a punch. The punch had acid in it. So you had an option to drink punch or drink soda. I don't think the warehouse had a liquor license at that time. So when you started drinking the punch, being high on acid, you're just floating. But walking into the warehouse, there's sofas, people sitting around, people hugged up on each other, the joints are being passed. There were no such thing as blunts at that time. Uh, you went into the first level was all lounges, your bathrooms. When you went downstairs was where the big dance floor was. You went upstairs, there was another large dance floor. It was truly a warehouse. So the walls were brick with the stripper poles throughout the place to where the point we danced. You could, if you got there, people would get there in time enough to claim a pole. You'd have your pole for the night, and you dancing with the pole and doing your thing, and you're drinking this punch, and you're in the seventh heaven. Oh my God, that's really taking me back, Lauren. Wow. I can literally visualize that. And everyone's dancing with everyone. You just got on the floor and start dancing. You didn't need a partner. I met many, many people in that era because at that time in life, in that community, we didn't meet strangers. We spoke to everyone. How you doing? If we saw the person the next week, good to see you. We acknowledge everyone. Hateration had not been invented at that time. We were
That's
all
nice.
just happy to be out amongst ourselves, and I felt safe in that
Oh,
environment.
nice.
That is something that I no longer can't say I know, yeah. To go out now and be in that environment, I choose not to be in a crowd of that size. I'm not
Mhm.
comfortable anymore. But
Talk
at
to me
that,
about the size of the crowd. Like what do you think, how
we're
big do you
talking
think this crowd was?
hundreds. We're talking hundreds. If you walked into a warehouse, an average night at the warehouse, I'm just visualizing. I'm gonna say 300 people in this one space, and
Wow.
probably 400 or 500 throughout the three levels of the warehouse. And wintertime, they had summertime, the patio, you could go out the side door, you smoked it, everything else out there, socialize. It was just a huge place of comfort, freedom, enjoyment. It was a happy place for me that time of my life. It really was, because I'm smiling now just flat thinking back of that. I met a lot of people, and in that era, being promiscuous was just normal. We were all doing what we needed to do at that time in our life.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, AIDS started coming out not until 78, 79, to where it became an issue. But that did not stop most of us in that mindset. We still
Mm.
wanted to get high and have fun. And as you know, sex sells.
Right.
That
Mhm.
was a big part of the warehouse at that time. You know, if you went out, yeah, what the evening pretty much knew what the evening was going to end up like. I went on for it, and you know what? I'm not ashamed. I went on with many people in that day, in that time of my life.
You're young. That's what you do. You know what I mean? So
Yes,
yeah.
yes, yes, yes.
So yeah, that makes sense to me. But
Yeah.
that's really interesting. So there was a little patio, you went out, there's a little outdoor area, so you went out there, smoked a little bit, hung out a little bit, back into the flow. Talk to me about the music. So house music was not called house music, so it wasn't called house music. Again, they were, Frankie and everybody else who was
Yes.
there at the
And
warehouse, who I
Frankie was
believe was,
there. Yes, yes,
yes. And some of the DJs, they're mixing, if I'm not mistaken, you tell me, soul, they're mixing
yes,
disco, they're mixing
yes,
R&B, but with some
yes.
heavy beats on it. So they were creating what became house music.
Exactly. Good point.
Right. And so the music to you though, you came in, you again, whatever this music was, definitely you and your friends immediately gravitated towards it.
Yes, yes. You could hear the way walking down the street, you could hear the music to where you're bopping down the street to get to this building. You're geeked. You got a smile on your face at that time. You're excited. And once you get in, it's just a feeling.
Mm,
Uh, I have not had that feeling going to clubs or places in this era of life, to where the way I felt going to the warehouse, the underground, and all those places in that time. It was something about. And when I listen to house music now, when I get in my car and turn it on, it brings a calmness to me.
yes. Hmm. Hmm.
Even though it's
That's
bang to bang
interesting.
to bang, it's a calmness. It's a
It's a
place of
calmness.
peace.
Yeah,
Yes,
music, it goes, certain house music can be soulful. Some of it is sort of bang bang, but it is
yes,
just chill.
it's
All
chill.
across the board, it's
Yes,
a very chill music form. You can groove
yes,
to however you like. You know what I mean? And so,
yes,
I mean, you can find all kinds of it. The heavy hitters, and then the chill, sort of relaxed house music that you can actually
yes.
study to. I used to study to house music in college. Like I would just be studying, listening to house
Really?
music. Crazy. Yeah, like I needed house
Wow.
music to study. It was weird.
That's
But
amazing.
so I'm going to talk about the other clubs now. You talked about Lorraine's, the Waterworks, the Underground. Talk to me first about Club Lorraine, because I hear a lot about that. Do you remember where it was?
Club Raisins is on Broadway and Clark, where they crossed
And so how did you get to Club Lorraine?
on the bus. You know what? At that time of Club Raisins, let me take that back. I was at home. My dad had started trusting me because I was working a job,
Where were you
and
working?
I was working in the brickyard. I worked at the limited and the proving ground in the brickyard on Narragansett and Diversey.
Nice.
My dad started letting me drive the Cadillac to work.
Oh, y'all had a Cadillac.
We grew.
I
That's all we. That's all we ever had. My dad did not change, Lauren. I think until you all came around. My dad. We had 6 Cadillacs before we met you all.
Oh
My
my
dad used to get a Cadillac every 2 years. Yeah.
goodness.
70, 72, 74, 76, 76. Yeah. And one year he got them back to back. But my dad had a pink Cadillac, believe it or not.
You must be kidding.
It was called Bimini Beige, but it was pink. Oh my God, I remember all that. But it looked pink with a rust top. And that's when they started cutting the cars off. And my dad I would earn my trust to where I would be allowed to go every now and then on Saturday if I promised to be back by midnight. Of course, I would say yes to get the car and get home at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm on punishment for a few weeks, but that was a part of it. But most of the time, going to the Waterworks or the race, Arthur and I were hangouters. Even when I started dating Graham at that time, Arthur was my scapegoat to get out the house because he would call the house. We didn't have cell phones. And my parents would let me go out with Arthur. Arthur was always my decoy to get out. Walk to Lake and Holman, which the L stop is now such a part. Walk to Lake and Holman. I felt safe at whatever time walking down Holman. I'm not walking down Holman at this point in my life. But taking the train, and we'd get off at State Street, get on the subway, and get on the Howard L. And I want to say take Howard to Diversey?
To Diversey, maybe if it's right there. I think it would probably let off. One of them let off there.
I think it was Belmont. We got off at Belmont.
We went all the way to Belmont and then walked back.
We went to Belmont and walked back. And at that time, the North Side, I think, is very diverse now. It used to be just a gay community. Belmont, Clark Street, Broadway, the people that lived on Lakeshore. It was a lot of the gay community that lived in that vicinity. I think it's everyone now. I mean, many gay people still live there, but at that time, it was a gay community. Broadway, the strip between there, that was a gay strip. You had your bookstore.
Boys Town is still over there.
Boys Town, yes. You had your bookstores. I don't think bookstores are around anymore. Bookstores were all down the street, but we would walk to Lorraine's. And Lorraine's, when you walked in Lorraine's, it was just a huge ballroom. With bars. The perimeter of the ballroom was bars. It had just steps. You get up on the platform and dance. And they had drag shows on Sundays and Wednesday nights at Lorraine's.
Wow.
In fact, that's where I met Derek Henderson. I met a partner there years ago, years ago. Yes.
So they had a drag show, and this is Club Race. Again, you're talking what, 1979, 80? How old were you then?
80, yeah, 79, 80, 81. Club.
You were still in high school.
Wait. I was with Derek Henderson, so no, we're talking late 80s because I was with Derek Henderson. So we're talking 80. I had moved to California, moved back to Chicago when Lorraine's opened. Okay,
got it.
So Lorraine's is 1987, 88, 89, because Derek and I became partners in 88, 87, 88. So yeah, because my partner was a designer and he was making clothes for most of the drag queens.
Oh, wow.
So I was at Lorraine's often.
And so Derek Anderson, where is he today?
Derek Henderson, he is no longer with us.
Derek Henderson, sorry.
Derek died of AIDS.
Sorry, when did he die?
Derek died, I had moved to LA. Derek must have died in 95. Derek died June 19th. He died on Father's Day, 1995.
I'm sorry about that.
All my past partners have passed on because of AIDS.
Wow.
And that's when it really got really thick. That's when it really got really bad. 85, 86, 87, 88. Many people. I know I have lost 18 friends of AIDS that I can count.
Wow.
Yeah. And it all, to me, it still stems from the house party, the house music, the acid, the drugs, all of that was a part of, to me, getting to that place in time. Just my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. I think at some point, there's so many sort of concerns with communities that can't be themselves everywhere. And so
Yes,
you're doing things. And unfortunately, that disease, very much like COVID, I mean, no one expected that to happen.
absolutely not.
Yeah. And then all of a sudden you've got this major pandemic. So,
Yes,
that's very much the same thing as I see it, until someone says, hey, this is what's impacting that. I mean, you don't know. You didn't know you could, with COVID, to cough on people, that kind of thing. Who knew, like
who
touching things,
knew?
who knew? Right.
Absolutely. Yes, yes, agreed.
So that's the time you had to learn to realize, oh, wow, now it's almost too late to do something about it. And the medical community didn't get things out like it probably as expediently as they did this time, but
Absolutely.
with this pandemic. But anyway, okay. So Club Lorraine, the underground. Where was the underground?
The underground was on Underground Whacker, Michigan. Would that be South? It was on South Waters.
Ah, okay.
And it was literally in that building, to see it in the 123 South Michigan building, where now I think there's the Hyatt Regency. It was right after they built it, there was another building right next to it. And there was a level, the basement part of that building was the underground. So
Nice.
so the way I got to the underground, take the Lake Street Ale, got off at Randolph.
Uh-huh.
And Randolph walk over to South Waters, and then you go under the Whacker, is that Whacker with all that Columbus down up under there. And
Yeah.
I'm not positive, but I think my memory's pretty good.
Your memory's on fire right now. You are good. You are good. So yeah, that's great. I've heard a lot about the underground as well. We know this guy, I believe Craig Cannon was a part of the R2 Underground.
Yes,
I think Craig Loftus, some other people were spinning there or managed it for the guy, that kind of thing. So it's
yes,
amazing the places that we went to for music, you know what I mean? And completely
yes.
feeling safe, like it was no big deal. Was the underground at that time when you were going, what years would you say you were at the underground?
The late 80s, the same era. Lorraine's and the Underground were all in the same time, because when Lorraine's closed, they moved on Halsted and Division, between Division and Chicago Avenue. It's not called the Garage, and I cannot remember the name of the owners of Lorraine's moved the location, and it became
Okay,
a different name.
got it. Yeah.
The
And so
Generator.
about
The
ah,
Generator.
man, you got all the info, man. You got all the info.
The
The generator. So
Generator was on Halsted between Division and Chicago Avenue. At that time, if I couldn't drive, was I at my parents' house or was I living with Derek? But I remember a couple of times taking the Chicago Avenue bus to all Halsted, because Arthur lived on Long and Lake Street. So Arthur would take the Lake Street, whatever, we would work it out. And we'd always meet up at Homer and Chicago Avenue, get on that bus and go to the club.
nice,
But
nice.
never, we didn't take the bus home often. We usually went other places. But yeah, the Generator. And Lauren, the Generator is the last one that I remember going to.
Ah, interesting. Okay. Yeah, you always kind of wonder where it stops, but I still got two more. So Waterworks, where was the Waterworks?
Waterworks was on Clark Street and what street is Water Tower on? What's that street right there called? Water Tower, not Oak, the other one.
I can't remember, but yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. So that's
Okay,
really close down.
Newberry Plaza sits right here. Newberry Plaza is on Rush and Clark, right?
Newberry Plaza. No, Newberry Plaza. Newberry is that's over there closer to those strips of apartment buildings that are right there. That's
It's
right
a
by
high
Newberry.
rise. Is that Newberry Plaza?
Yes. That yeah, I know what you're talking about. Those are different, but I think I know what you're talking about because I forget the name of where the the water tower is, but it's where the old, the water tower building is on right
Chestnut,
on Michigan. Chestnut.
Clark,
Okay.
Clark and Chestnut
Clark and Chestnut, the
was
Waterworks.
the Waterworks. Yes.
Because that
And
is
the
where the water
waterworks
tower is.
was a hole in the wall that they went in and put some paneling up and made it this new club. It was an older bar, white owned originally, but they let the blacks come in. Blacks went in there,
Mm.
like I said, painted a wall here, put a bar in there, and it became the new hangout because the place that's on Van Buren that's still, I can't think of the name of it. Oh my God. These were many places that we had to go to the time that the gay community just ventured out. But the
Mhm.
Waterworks it was a mini warehouse. It probably held 50 people, and it was probably 300 people in there on a regular basis. Because also, I forgot to say, going to the warehouse, you never left there dry. If
Right.
you didn't leave the warehouse soaking wet, you had not been out. It had been a waste of time. If you didn't walk outside in the daylight, the sun shining, and you were not soaking wet down to your underwear, you had not been to a party. And that's something
Yes.
I remember. That was the pneumonia days, and all
Right.
you stayed sick
Exactly.
in those days.
Exactly.
Yes, yes,
That's true. So the Waterworks also, okay, talk to me about, so Club Array, definitely a gay club. But did you
yes.
know that straight people were coming because of the music? Or do you know who was spinning at Club Arrays? What did you know about the music?
There were many straight people that came into Lorraine's because of where it was. It was on Clark and Broadway, whatever that street is. So it was in a party community. So you got these, I call them bi-curious people. They they're still here. They're not leaving. They're gonna
You're right.
forever be here. You hear this music and you want to know what's going on behind that wall. So whites, all ethnicities came in Lorraine's because of the community that was there. Um, but yeah, the music, there were many straight people. You would have the girls coming to dance with themselves. There were straight girls that had been out to dinner after work and on their way walking home, and they would end up in the club. There was a restaurant that your Como Inn, people that went to Como Inn back in the day, that was a hot spot in Chicago. I don't even know if it's still there. But we
Hmm.
had people that would leave Como Inn to come to Lorraine's.
Hmm.
I don't know how that happened, but just the drag shows brought a different interest because batons, at that time, baton might have been $20 to get in. I think it's ridiculous now. So people, that was an option for couples or straight people per se to come see a drag show. They could come to Lorraine's and see a drag show for whatever the entry fee was, $5, $10. It was not a lot. But you got
Where
a
was
show.
Como Inn? Where was Como Inn?
Halsted, and it's an angle streets. Is it Elston?
Yeah, probably Elston is at the Angle Street for sure. But that's
Clybourne.
further
Come
west.
on, it was on, but no, Clybourne. It was on
Clyburn.
Clybourne,
Okay.
and Halsted was the come on in.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's where Uncle Julio's is now. So right
Yes,
across
exactly.
the
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Right.
So Boston Clyburn, that's Como Inn, and then they came to Lorraine's after that.
Yes.
Got it. Got it. Got it.
And I think
Okay.
there used to be a flyer for the drag shows. And I think those flyers got put up in various places. And and if I remember correctly, the owners of the Coleman was a gay couple.
Interesting. Okay.
If I remember correctly. And I think the post of the flyer would, yeah, I think my memory's kind of correct.
Got it. So I'm gonna go back a little bit again. I keep going
Okay.
back. So you talk about going to high school, you wanted to go to Westinghouse, and you found this community of people who supported you and your sexuality. So talk to me about that. How are you recognizing that there is a community of people who you can hang with? Talk to me about sort of how you're meeting these people, because high school is odd sometimes. You can't really don't get to know everybody, but you know people from grammar school, and so sometimes you sort of hang in the same crowd. How
Yeah.
did you meet these other people?
Being in high school, I knew I was gay. I was somewhat, you may not believe this, flamboyant, and I attracted a different crowd of people. I was very popular in high school. I knew all the girls. I knew all the cheerleaders. I was on pep squad, and just all of that circle started me being not comfortable with being gay, but knowing who I was at that time. And I started getting attraction from other people that were gay at Westinghouse,
Got it.
where we were able to start communicating. There's a lingo. Gays, we have a lingo. I think everyone has picked it up now. The things that we used to say, I think the whole world says it now, lingo.
Okay.
But we had certain words at that time that were clue words. And if we clicked, we were able to be comfortable with it. So I had several gay friends at Westinghouse. All of them not as comfortable being gay as I was, and I did not realize how comfortable I was with it until I started dating the teacher. It wasn't accept, at that time, still being gay in 1979, 80 was not accepted. It was, it was a vendetta that, if you were gay, you were talked about, and it was just something you just didn't take home to mom and dad.
Right. Yeah.
But starting to venture out with the friends from Westinghouse, the two or three, going to the clubs or just in conversation. And then when I started working downtown, when you left school together, two or three of you all left school together. So you had conversations on the bus going to the L, you get downtown, various people, you go to work, do your whatever. And the next day you had more conversation of things to talk about, what had happened happened to you that day, which was a comfort zone being in high school, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that absolutely makes sense. So how surprised were you that the community of gays in Chicago, certainly Black men, there were a lot of mainly you're hanging with Black men, or you're hanging with a lot of white people, or are you with Black men?
I was hanging with Black people.
Got it.
I went through an era called a snow queen, where I like white men, but that was 14, 15, 16. That one I was still searching to find myself. I thought I liked white men. Even now I still say I want me a rich white man, but that's another story on another channel. But realize in that era, the Black gay community was more friendly than they've ever been. I don't think the Black gay community of 2023 is gay friendly. There's cliques. We were just one big community growing up. Everyone, as I said, there was no strange. We supported each other. I don't think of 2023 that many gay men don't support each other. Everyone's out. People have gotten selfish, and life has gotten us to a point of that, and I get it. People are more protective of their space because us that have lived to get C60 have been through a whole lot. Many didn't get to C60, so you learn from your mistakes. And at that time in life, we were all making many, many, many mistakes, but it was okay. Right. It wasn't frowned upon. It was okay. If you made a mistake, Maurice so-and-so, and you move on. Now that things are not dismissed as easily in the era we live now. So yeah, it was just a good time for me, Lauren.
Got it. So it sounds like it was a good time. You know what I mean? Besides the small troubles with your parents trying to get in and out of the house. But that's a tough time when you're a kid, it's like, you know who you are, you know who you want to hang with. Unfortunately, those people who want to hang at midnight. You know what I mean? So you got to do what you got to do to get out there and get into it. So you moved to LA, you moved to different places, came back to Chicago, and went back on the scene. So then I hear, so you're back at LaRae's, you're at, some of these other places, your friends are still going with you. Had Chicago had the community, so in that era, in between the 79s and then the late 70s and then the late 90s, how had Chicago changed to you? Had it changed at all? What was going on as you saw? Because some of these places, warehouse was closing, and there's another place, this place is closing, you're going to another place. how was the scene changing a little bit for you, since you're talking a little bit about sort of the connectedness early, and how did that sort of your last stop be the generator? What happened?
Well, I think at that time when those in that era, Lauren, you all were probably, I was living on Hollywood and Sheridan, I believe, when you all were first starting school at Northwestern.
Oh,
So
wow.
that may have been is that 80, 81? Wait, what?
We went to
85?
school in 85. Yep.
85. So yeah. So the same, so that's when it died out. 85, 86. So let me get my dates right, because I remember at that time I had a car and Katrina had a burgundy car at my mom's car at Northwestern with you. So me living on Hollywood and Sheridan, I was going, yeah, the generator, that would have been the last era of that. So that would be 85.
Okay, got it.
You all were freshmen at Northwestern. So that was the last 85. I'm going to just move my dates up and say 85, 86, 87 was the the Waterworks probably had closed. The Ritz
Mhm.
had closed. I don't think we mentioned the Ritz. The Ritz was also on Clark, around the corner from the Waterworks. That was another hole in the wall, but it was a comfort zone for many of us in my community.
Mhm.
So Lorraine's was, I guess, 87. Instead, I said 80. Yeah, I think Lorraine's was probably 87. Then the generator was 87, 88. Because Derek and I started dating in 87. I was living on Sheridan and Dakin, I think at that time. I had moved right by the train tracks or something like that. So yeah, we were still going to clubs. So up until, Lauren, I guess 88, 89, because I left Chicago in 89 and moved to, did I move to Atlanta? I've lived so many places. I think I moved to Atlanta in 80. No, Katrina moved to Houston in 89. So that means I moved here. I moved to Las Vegas.
Oh, that was your first Las Vegas then. I never could remember when you kept saying you'd come back and you knew these people
89.
before, but I was like, I know you been to Vegas, but I could be forgetting stuff. Did you go in
This is
between
my
that
third
time too?
this
Right.
this is my third time living here.
Okay, got it. Got it. I think, yeah, because I was like, I can't remember the early ones. Okay. So here's sort of my last question. So I appreciate you talking to me about the clubs, about the environment, etc., about the music, how it made you feel. Um, this is in generally a discussion about Chicago, a discussion about Black Chicago. It's a discussion about Black Chicago music. When we talk about sort of the beginnings of the music form, we have to give respect to the gay community
Absolutely.
for bringing in Robert Williams, who's gay, bringing in Frankie Knuckles, who's gay, and just creating communities for yourselves that straight
Yes.
people like myself just barged in there because the music was so hot. You know what I mean? I mean,
Right.
we won't let y'all have nothing, right? It's just like white people. They just always got
wasn't
stuff.
it inviting? I don't mean to cut you, but wasn't it inviting when you first got into it? You heard
Right.
this music, like, what the hell is that?
So here's the deal. My story's so different because in 1981, I went to high school in 1981. In 1981, house music was just like, it was like, I grew up with it. I was, 13. You heard it. Hot Mix
Yes.
5 was jamming out, that kind of thing was starting to flow. So that was just the music that we knew. So we didn't associate it with one thing or another. It
Right.
wasn't just like, we just want to go hear the music, you know what I mean? And just hang out. And we heard it in our cars. The cars stereo were turned up very high so you could hear it everywhere. But my era didn't associate it. And maybe because I'm straight, I didn't associate it with any group of people or people who had created it or whatever. It was just sort of what we did. People
Yes.
recreated it. People were doing it. It was playing at the sock hops in high school. You know
Yes.
what I mean? It wasn't
Yes.
underground in that way. It was
Yes.
fully above ground. Do you know what I mean? So we didn't know much about anything about I think its origins as a young person like myself. Like I just didn't associate it with
Yes.
anything other
You
than
didn't know the
Chicago
history,
music.
behind the growth, the journey behind house music, what we
Exactly.
went through. Because house music, yeah, I would not be that would not be a part, that wouldn't be certain aspects of my life would not be if it had not been for house music.
Interesting.
Yes.
Well, that is, we can end right there. I'm happy that I got to talk to you a little bit about your life and your story and how Chicago clubs and Chicago music shaped you. Some things
Yes,
for some
it
things
really did.
good, some
Yes.
things bad. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes.
but
Agreed.
overall, this music is, over 40 years old now, and it's global and it's hitting the heights. But
Yes.
without you all embracing the music, embracing the creatives of the music, the creatives of business to have a place, someone had to
Yes.
create the warehouse. Someone had to
Yes.
create Club Lorraine. Someone had to invite all these group of people with no social media, with no, you know what I mean? Like, how the heck did you all know to go to the warehouse? I mean, how did Arthur know how to get to the warehouse? There's no, you had to see the, flyers, or I don't know how, it's
Yeah.
just word of mouth and you get
It
there,
was. I
so.
think it was word of mouth. I honestly think it was word of mouth because it was a secret.
Right.
At that time, it was a secret. Honestly think, yeah, it was not advertised. VON was not telling you about going to the warehouse.
Exactly.
GCI was not saying, come on down to the warehouse at midnight on Friday night. I
Right.
just don't think that's where it was being advertised at.
You just went there. And again, there's so many people who are underage who snuck out of the house. I mean, you were
Yes.
not alone in the sneak out of the house, get back at 6 o'clock in the morning, sneak in before you had to go to church. The story
Yes.
across the board
I
with so many
lived it.
people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's amazing.
That is amazing. So, Maurice, anything else you want to tell us about, about your community? What you want to talk about Chicago Black history, music? Is there anything you want to share that we haven't touched on so far that
I
impacted
think
you?
you have been very enlightening with your questions. I've been more vocal with you than I have with anybody in a long time sharing my past, but being happy to share it with you. I honestly think this is such an amazing concept you're doing, especially for Black history. House music is Black history. So I feel I'm a part of it.
You are Black history. You are Chicago Black history. You are music history. Again, I think people really have to embrace that without this music having the support of your community,
Yes.
that it would not have survived. It would not
Absolutely.
have thrived. And then people being inviting and welcoming, because you could have said, I don't want you to come in here. You know what I mean? I don't want some people to come in, some people not to come in. I saw this great documentary about the blues. I forget Sam, forget his last name, but he was talking about being on 43rd Street and these Jewish kids coming out from Skokie, etc., wanting to learn the blues. And they said Muddy Waters and Buddy Guy would be like, if they want to learn, we want to teach them. You know what I mean? And that's how it flourishes. But sometimes people don't want to give credit where credit is due. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So,
Yes. Yes.
without you all supporting it and feeling like you had a wonderful community there that was safe, this music would not have, I think, endured in the way that it has. So
I agree.
thank you, Maurice.
No, thank you. This has truly been a privilege and a treat for me. You brought back, oh my God, you stirred up so many memories. I'm just smiling from ear to ear.
I am too. It's great to
great.
learn more about you, Maurice, because you're such a beautiful person and one of my loves. So I'm just so happy that I get to know more
you're one
about
of my
you.
sisters. Yes. Thank you,
I am
Lauren.
an Adams.
Yes, you are. You are family. Thank you so much, Lauren, for this privilege.
Thank you. So thanks for listening to the Vintage House Show on WNUR. We had a special guest tonight, a true house head, but before there was a house head, there was Maurice Adams at the warehouse enjoying house music from Frankie Knuckles and the other DJs that were there. His story is a unique story from a unique point of view, and we're happy to have him on the show. Thanks again, Maurice.
I love you.
Love you too, babe. All right. I'll let you know when this airs, okay?
Thank you so much.
All right. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to the Vintage House Show podcast. Please subscribe and share, and check us out live, WNUR 89.3 FM, Wednesdays at 10 o'clock.